Hello, and thank you for joining in this presentation today. Care in Action, Supporting Your Student Through Challenges. I'd like to welcome you to this part of family orientation and welcome you as part of the William and Mary community and tribe. This is an exciting day for you and your student and for all of us here that are here to welcome you and support you through this journey. My name is Dr. Jenny Call, and I'm the Executive Director for Student Success and Access. I get the privilege of overseeing two important departments that help in supporting your students, Student Accessibility Services and Care Support Services. I'll be focusing more on care support services today as there are other presentations throughout family orientation for student accessibility services and information on accommodations. I wanted to start off with a story. About 31 short years ago, I was a first year student entering William and Mary. You'll see 18-year-old me on the left side of the screen in my very trendy at the time overalls from the 1990 somethings. You'll also see my very meager belongings. This was before the advent of headboards for college dorms and decorators and such. No Pinterest boards for us, but we made it through somehow. I remember so clearly how I felt then. I was so excited. I was a little bit anxious, wasn't sure if I belonged. And in the process of that exciting day, I also had the biggest argument with my mom ever. Now, I made the mistake of saying it was the best day of my life, which, in retrospect, as a mother myself now, I can understand why, out of all the years and experiences, the very day I would be leaving her was the best day. And that was not what I was thinking at the time, but that was what was on her mind. So, as a young adult and now as an older adult with a young adult of my own, I understand all the emotions that go into this day on both sides, from the student to the parent. And I know that you are here because you care deeply about your student and want to make sure they're okay here. So to continue my story, I came back here to William and Mary about 6 years ago during the pandemic. And I came back because William and Mary in Williamsburg has felt very much like my home for all of these years since I first came onto campus. There's a saying that we love, those who come here belong here. And for many of us, that is a sentiment that lasts beyond the 4 or more years we're here and past graduation. I was really excited to come back to William and Mary because I heard all the work that was happening with health and wellness initiatives and with student success and support. And I was thrilled to see William and Mary growing in supports and in decreasing stigma for those supports in a way that I wished I had had when I was an 18-year-old. So I've had my experience as an undergraduate here. I have my experience as a staff here. And now in the final picture, you will see me with my own young adult. This picture was taken in front of Cremdell. It's one of my daughter Marin's senior photos. And I got the privilege of sneaking into one of the pictures to share this special place and moment with her. So she is my baby, and she is off to college this fall at the University of Richmond. And in fact, between dropping her off in this session, I also attended my own family orientation session. So now I'm seeing things from different sides. I'm learning how to be that parent that can let go and trust in my daughter's growth while also worrying and supporting her so that she develops the necessary coping skills and resilience she will need. But as I was at my own family orientation session, I couldn't help but think about how will this student take care of my student? What will happen if and when something goes wrong? I want to have that sense of comfort, and so I want to give that to you today. And I'm going to share one of the reasons that I think your child is in good hands here at William and Mary. I mentioned the supports that are available here, and I will say both as a student and as a staff, we have a strong support network that has only grown over the years that I've been connected with William and Mary. And I'm very privileged to be part of that through one of those supports, care support services. Here is pictures of my lovely team, our director, Amelia Cross, assistant director, Sydney Baker, and our coordinator, Jennifer Barnes. We also have a graduate assistant and intern that will be joining us soon. And we are so excited to meet our new students. And in fact, we will meet them this weekend and provide orientation sessions for them, as well as welcoming them into our office for events and our block party coming up. So they will see these friendly, familiar faces and they will get to know our office as a welcoming place to come when they may not know where to go. So, the mission of Care Support Services is to compassionately assist and empower students in managing interpersonal, academic, and wellness concerns by offering advocacy and connection to resources. I see Care Support Services as a hub that connects students to the spokes of the many different support resources we have on campus. You can see more about that on our website, but I also want to kind of walk you through how we support students and how to reach out if you might have a question. So the question we're all here for is, what do I do when my student is struggling? And I empathize with that question so much as a parent and as someone that works closely with your students on a daily basis. We know that we don't want to think about challenges or struggle in this time of excitement, of all the anticipation, but we know that struggle is a normal part of life, and your child may deal with any number of life concerns that may happen during their time here. But know that we have the supports here to help guide them through that, to help them grow in their own resilience and to be able to advocate for themselves, to be aware of what they need, and to know where to go when they need support. Now, the hard part of that sometimes as a parent is to know how and when to step in. And I've navigated this dance with my two young adults. I have one that is living independently and one, as I mentioned, who is going into college. It is hard to know when to step in and when to let them take their own steps and when to sometimes let them fail or let them deal with challenges so they will grow. You've heard this advice already several times. If you haven't heard it already, you will hear it from President Rowe. You will hear it from family engagement. But these are kind of the steps we encourage parents to think about as they are encouraging their students towards independence and giving the necessary supports when needed. So, what do you do when you get that phone call from your student that they want to come home immediately, that things are not going well, that this is not the way they thought things would be? And it could be any number of things that are causing those feelings to come up. We know that it's a difficult transition coming to college. Students are leaving all that's familiar, including their support systems. They're having to navigate new settings, new schedules, new independence, new responsibilities, and they're learning to find their way through all this uncertainty. So when you get that phone call, I encourage you, both from my experience as a parent and as a student support professional, to listen calmly and actively, to give them space to share their frustrations or their fears or their concerns, to ask questions about how they're feeling, about what they're thinking, about what strategies they might be thinking about. Secondly, I encourage you not to react. Because I know that feeling when your heart is pounding, when you're worried about your child, when you want to step in and fix it. And there's some times when you can't, and there's some times when it may be better to let them figure it out on their own. So we encourage you to ask them if they want you to listen or if they want you to help. There are times that they may have questions that they need your help with. They need you to help them figure out what their options are. But don't assume that they need you to intervene because they are learning these skills and they have the supports to do that here. Next, respect their request. If they say, no, I don't want help, please don't offer advice. I can tell you that will backfire from personal experience. Maybe your child is not like mine, but you could give all the right answers and it's still not what they want to hear. What they need is to know that you're there, that you're listening, that you hear them, and that you care, and that you trust that they have the skills and the capacity to grow into this challenge and to learn what their resources are and to make the right decisions, even if sometimes they will fail at that, knowing that that's also an opportunity for learning and growth. Remind them of your support and encourage them to reach out to campus resources and supports. And that's why I'm so glad you're here today, so that you might familiarize yourself with some of those supports and perhaps point them in the right direction. But most importantly, a thing that you could do that can be tangibly helpful to your child is to submit a care concern. What is a care concern, you ask? I'm so glad you asked. Care concerns are a way that our community looks out for each other. A concern is something that can be submitted by anyone, faculty, staff, peers, the student themselves, um, someone from the outer community. This is an open form, public, that is on our Care Support Services website, and it notifies care support services when a student might be struggling, when they're experiencing challenges, whether it be academic or social, maybe a change in mood or behavior, maybe a concern about them not going to class. Maybe it's a concern that they are staying in their room or they seem lonely or they've said something about feeling like they don't belong. These care concerns can be submitted by anyone that is concerned about someone, and those care concerns come into our office, and there's a process for us to reach out and offer support to students, which I will explain shortly. I do want to give the caveat, however, that care concerns are not an emergency response. So if there is an emergency concern, when you are worried about your child's immediate safety, well-being, please reach out to William and Mary Police. You can call them at 757-221-4596. That number is shared around our campus. And if this is a mental health concern, the counseling center can be called to make sure that they are aware of the situation. Counselors will not reach out to the students themselves, but they can reach out to police to make sure that the appropriate check-ins are done. So what happens after a care concern is submitted? It comes into the Care Support Services office. It is triaged by the Assistant Director, Sydney Baker. She reads all the care concerns and she assigns it within 24 hours during business days to someone who is trained to offer student support. So these are student affairs professionals that work with students in a support capacity. They are trained in responding to care concerns, and their guideline is to reach out within 48 hours of receiving that care concern to the student of concern. So they will send an email to the student, they may call the student, and when they're doing that, they are letting the student know that they are not in trouble. This is simply a concern that someone had because they cared about your student and wanted to make sure they had support. That support professional will then encourage the student to schedule a meeting with them where they could walk through the supports and resources available to the student. The student, if it's not an urgent concern, can choose whether or not they want to engage with support services. But regardless of whether or not the student chooses, we want to let them know that they have support resources, that there's a strong support network on campus, and we are here to help them navigate that, to find what might be applicable in their situation, to help them discern what they might need, what help might be beneficial for them. Staff who are assigned the care concern will respond to the reporter to let them know that the report has been received and will receive outreach, but we are not able to communicate with reporters about what happens as a result of that outreach. This is due to FERPA privacy laws that we are making sure that we are protecting the students' privacy. Students have to give consent for us to be able to communicate, even with parents in situations that aren't emergencies. So we will always ask students if they want us to share with anyone else, if they are comfortable doing that. We always encourage students to share with those that are close to them with their supports. But we are not always able to do that because we are focusing on that relationship with the student. Like I said, students can choose whether or not to engage with that support, but there are emergency situations where there may be more urgent need for us to connect with a student. And in those cases, we do get emergency personnel involved to make sure that student has follow-up support and are safe, and that other members of our campus will be safe as well. Now, this may not be a one-time connection. We're hoping as students connect with that support personnel that they know that they have a person or a department to go to on campus when they have questions. So one of the goals is to establish that relationship of support, that a student knows where to go the next time they might have concerns. And even if a student chooses not to engage with support, we do send a follow-up email with support resources listed so that students have that for a reference in case they ever need to take advantage of those. Here are some of the common areas of concern we receive from care concerns. It can be anything from early transition challenges, homesickness, not feeling a connection at William and Mary, which can persist for a number of weeks. It takes a while to get settled, and so we will have those care concerns, and we work actively to connect students to resources to get them engaged in campus life, to make sure that they are finding what they were looking for when they first decided to come here. We also get care concerns for illness or injury. We actually get reports each time there's a hospital transport. So if a student is taken to the hospital from William and Mary, we will get a notification so that we could follow up to make sure that student is getting the care they need, and to make sure that when they return to campus, they are able to figure out next steps, whether that's continuing academics, getting more follow-up care, or taking time away when they need that. We're also here to help students navigating grief and loss, to help them find relevant campus resources and community resources when they are seeking support, to help them manage interpersonal conflict. It may be the first time a student is living with a roommate, and helping them figure out how to manage that, and how to deal with difficult conversations that might need to be had, and helping them navigate conflict. And also mental health concerns. We know that that academics can be a stress for a number of students. We know that students deal with already diagnosed mental health conditions. And so we are here to make sure they have support, whether that's connecting them to our counseling center, to Timely Care, which is our virtual on-demand counseling service, or that if they are looking for a provider in the area, we're connecting them to someone who can refer them to a local provider. We have a variety of ways of receiving information about students. So our office is usually aware early of concerns that may be happening, as we're getting care concerns from faculty, from RAs in the residence halls, from other staff, from students themselves. We also as I mentioned, receive notification of hospital transport. So that's our on-call system that runs outside of business hours. So from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m., Monday through Thursday, and then 24 hours on the weekends. We have someone answering the phone and making sure students are getting follow-up care. We also communicate regularly with our campus partners. So we work in really close collaboration um, with others who are supporting students. And we'll talk a little bit more about who those people are. And so we're in continual conversation about what we're seeing, where we're seeing supports, and making sure that there's follow up for those students who need help. Part of that is through our care team, which is a multidisciplinary group that meets weekly to discuss care concerns. And so there are representatives from William and Mary Police, our Title IX office, Residence Life, um, our conduct office. We have multiple members that come together to discuss moderate level student concerns. So these are not just the student has missed a couple of days of class. These are the more concerning ones where behavior is um, concerning to the point that we're noticing a change in the student, that we're worried and feel like they need additional support. Or if there's a disruption, there's a disruption that's impacting others, whether it's in the residential setting or in classrooms. There's also an ability to submit what's called a student emergency notification request online. This is something that students or families can submit if a student has an emergency situation. So this includes a hospitalization of more than 1 day, a concussion, or the death of a close family member. These are the three instances where we would not expect a student to be able to reach out to their professors to let them know. So in those cases, with that information, we are able to do that on behalf of the student. Now, in other cases, we are assuming that students will be in communication with their faculty when they miss class, when they know that's going to happen, or if they have a short illness or a short visit to the hospital, that they are able to communicate that because that's part of the autonomy that we want them to have. There are no excuse notes that are given or accepted here. It's just that honor system of students communicating with their faculty and with us helping with that in case a student is unable to do so. And then students are responsible for working with their faculty member to make up any missed work or to make arrangements for that. I mentioned that a big goal of our work in care support services is to help students find and create their own network of support. We know that families are a big and important part of that. And as students shift away from their homes to come to college and make new connections, we want them to have a support network here on campus as well. So, what could that look like? I mentioned that I talk about care support services and that I'm also connected with student accessibility services. These two departments, along with academic well-being, form a thematic area called student success. Student success is part of student affairs, so all of those things that take place outside of the classroom, we are the ones that are working with students to help them figure out how to navigate their academic well-being, to navigate accommodations if they have a disability, and to help them navigate any challenges they might have and find the support resources they need. So, in particular, our three departments work really closely together to help students find and create their network of support, one that is holistic. It's not just looking at academics or not just looking at physical well-being, but emotional and mental and academic and financial. We are offering that wraparound care that students may be working with the Care Support Services office, but we are also helping connect them to maybe student accessibility services if we discover they need accommodations, or we are connecting them to academic well-being. And then with the students' consent, we can collaborate and talk together to make sure students are not having any gaps in their care, but they have all the support they need. Very collaborative, very student-centered, It's relational. We want students to feel like they have that point of contact, that they have real people that really genuinely care about them and that see them as an individual, that see their strengths, that help them use their strengths to overcome challenges and help them to find their belonging and connection and success here at William and Mary. We're working with them to grow and develop, knowing that that is part of the journey here, not just academic growth, but emotional growth, helping them to find coping skills to build resilience and grit and autonomy and all of those things that are going to be necessary in their adult life. So that is part of the process I talk about when a student's struggling, trying to figure out how to navigate that balance of letting them find solutions and letting them use their skills and maybe at times even struggle just a little bit to know that they can overcome. Finding that balance is important. So that's why we're working collaboratively with students, with these other offices, and understanding that families are a very important part of that support network. And knowing that when a student gives us permission, we are always going to include you as they're open to do so because we know that you know and care about your students, and we want to make sure that we're hearing your voice as well, but ultimately leaning on the student to make their decisions after having that all the informed, all the opinions shared and all the options given. So with that network of support, it may start with a student coming to the Care Support Services office. Maybe they heard about us at orientation, and they want to know more. Maybe they're struggling with a problem. They walk in and we either see them immediately if we have the space to do so, or we make an appointment with them within a day or two. Um, we are working to help them figure out what supports are needed in this case. We are working one-on-one to listen actively to them, to really help them identify what their concern is. Maybe not, it may not be the same concern that's listed on the care concern because we know that sometimes those are symptoms of underlying issues. So what is that student struggling with, and what do they feel like they need for their support? We may be reaching out because of a care concern or because we heard that they had a hospital visit. We may be reaching out because we hear that they haven't been attending class. But we are going to reach out, invite them to join us, let them know that this is 100% a supportive measure and not one that will be on any kind of record. This is not a report in the sense that, I remember going through school and always hearing about things that would go on your permanent record. And I never got to see that permanent record. We assure students that that is not the case here. We are not documenting things that will go on their transcript. We are simply trying to connect them to resources and make sure they have what they need for success. So we may be connecting them to another office within student success, so academic well-being or student accessibility services. We may be collaborating with residence life when we hear that there's a disruption in the residence hall or students having a conflict with their roommate, or there's been an ask for a room change, and we are working to make sure that the students' questions are answered and they have all the supports they need. We are not working in care support services with that room change. We can't make that happen, but we can be that connector to connect them to residence life to make sure that once that room changes in process or once that conflict has happened, that student has the resources they need to deal with whatever's ongoing, whether there's conflict, that we are working with the students to make sure that they are developing the skills they need. We work closely with health and wellness, which is actually across the sidewalk from our office. So we can walk students over to the student health center or the counseling center. With a student sign release, we can talk to counselors and really figure out that holistic plan for making sure that a student can prioritize their mental health while being a student. And in those crisis moments that occasionally happen, figuring out what a student needs for their well-being and figuring out what are the options and helping communicate with faculty as well to make sure that we know all the students' options and are giving them the opportunity to make the best decision for their well-being, which we always prioritize. There are other offices that we work closely with, whether it's first gen student engagement, the Center for Inclusive Excellence, um, conflict resolution and engagement, that we are working with students to connect them to organizations where they might find belonging, where they might grow in skills and learn how to manage things they are dealing with. Um, or simply that they might learn about other opportunities to get involved on campus. We work closely with STEP, so the student transition programs, especially as they are putting on orientation and following the students through the next steps. We are making sure if there are those transition issues that we are early in intervention to get them connected to supports. Additionally, I mentioned families are such an important part of that network of support. So I'm so glad that you're here today. It really shows your care and concern, and know that you are an important part of the William and Mary community. And I look forward to um, learning more about you. I definitely look forward to meeting your student. And I encourage you to reach out to me if there are ways that I can help you figure out how to navigate these challenges your students are facing, and assuring you that they have the best support here at William and Mary. Thank you so much for your time and your energy. And I wish you the best in this transition. I definitely know what that feels like from my side of things. But I want you to be reassured that your students have a wonderful journey ahead with many supports and many opportunities. Thank you for giving them this opportunity, and thank you for taking this opportunity today. Thanks so much.